Hey guys, I'm just gonna go over the Republican Party presidential primaries. Um, and I'll link this page, but if you want to follow the primaries in the future, you're gonna want to use the Wikipedia page because it's an excellent resource that shows you the dates of all the primaries and caucuses, and it shows you the rules because the primaries on the Republican side are very confusing. Um, and they're all different state by state, so you literally can't follow it unless it's you're not going to memorize all the rules until you follow it for years and years and years. And even then, they change the rules all constantly. So on the Democratic side, it's all proportional. It's pretty easy. So there's a lot of resources here to look over if you want. Not this is There's a lot more here because it's after the fact, but typically, you know, there won't be so much junk. There'll be a lot of good stuff for you to look at. Like you're gonna definitely want to follow the money. I showed that in my last video, so check that out if you haven't. But um, the when a candidate's doing poorly, and when they're running out of money, that's when they're gonna drop out. It's actually pretty easy to predict about when a candidate's gonna drop out if you follow the money. Money really does equal votes, so to a large extent. So then you have so the actual rules here. Here's your date of each primary. You can see this is like Super Tuesday, um, and these big events, but there's all these little ones that you don't want to forget too. And here's this is each state obviously, and there's also the District of Columbia and Guam territories. So you have here are your delegates, and they are given out based on in different methods. So your RNC, these are like party delegates, and they give three to each state. And those three, I believe, always go to the winner of the state by popular vote. And most of them will be bound, except for a couple that are unbound. And over here you can see the bound and unbound totals. What that means is there will be a vote of, you know, there'll be a first vote, and all the bound and even the delegates that go as unbound, they all vote, and the bound ones are tied to whoever selected them. So if New Hampshire selected Trump to win, then their delegates have to vote for Trump, you know. So the unbound ones, like there's three here because a candidate dropped out that won three of these delegates. So they can choose to vote for whoever they want. And then if no candidate gets to 50% plus one, then, because that's the magic number, then all of the bound delegates become unbound. And every, that's when it becomes cutthroat. Every delegate can vote for whoever they want on a personal level. And, that's when things get crazy. So, um, then so what do all these other sections mean? Well, you have your statewide, um, which is slightly different because these delegates come from the party, whereas these are coming from the state. But these are allocated by the statewide vote, just like the party ones are. And although there is a slight difference where all three always go to the winner of the state, I believe, whereas the state can make rules for these delegates. Like this one's proportional. So, someone may win, um, if they win 33% of the vote and they'll get 5 out of 15, even though they won, um, out of all the candidates, because there can be a lot of candidates, so 33% can win the plurality. But with the RNC, you would get the 5 from here, and then you'd get the 3 from here, so you'd actually get 8. So that it does work a little differently sometimes. Now here, when it's winner takes all, it's it's going to be the same. So basically, whoever wins the state gets 29. So that's a little difference. Then there's your congressional districts, and I explain this in my electoral map analysis and trying to teach people how to analyze election night. In Maine, there are the districts, and Nebraska has districts. Well, all states actually have districts, and normally each district is worth 3 delegates. I think Missouri and maybe a couple other states do 5, but so if there's 12 delegates going out in Iowa, that means there's 4 congressional districts, and they're given out proportionally. So say you have to remember each district is basically its own election. So if in District 1 someone wins 67% of the vote and someone else wins 33%, that one candidate's going to get, you know, 2 of that District 1, and then the first candidate that got less, they're only going to get 1 of the 3. But there's still 3 other districts that will give delegates out by congressional district. And so then, each state is significantly different. So you have your proportional, yeah, and for allocation, there are many ways to give them out. Winner takes all. You have winner takes most. Um, you have no allocation. A lot of times that's for like unpledged. But I think there's another one too that I'm missing right now. But um, for winner takes most, in the conduct, that's going to mean like 2/3 go to the winner and 1/3 goes to second place. And so when it's winner takes most by congressional district, and Alabama's giving out 21, so they're giving out 3 per district, and there's 7 districts. In District 1, say the winner, say they get 40% of the vote, they get 2 of those delegates. But if they get to 50%, then they get all 3. So you have to keep that in mind, especially on the statewide winner takes most. Like in say Idaho, you have 29 statewide winner takes most. So you'll get all 29 if you can get to 50% or more. And that's why sometimes you see candidates go to these areas where they clearly are going to win, but they want to get to that 50% mark. And so anyway, that's how that works. So then you have your threshold. And a lot of states are 0. They don't have a threshold, but then here's like 10%, 3.33%, 20%. Usually thresholds are for the earlier states, and they're usually around 20% or 15%. And this means that a candidate has to get, to 10% in order to be viable for delegates. If they don't get if if they don't get to that mark, then they can't get a delegate. So um, keep that in mind too. So there's a, you don't really have to pay attention to the type of election. It's not really that important for our purposes. Um, just you really want to study all these different types because this is, if a candidate gets far behind, they're going to need to take all these winner takes all. And the winner takes all elections are mainly late. These, like Oregon and Washington, these states are pretty dumb because they're not going to get um, much in terms of candidates going there. Well, I guess these two are by themselves, but a lot of candidates are just gonna skip over these states and try to concentrate on these bigger ones where they can win them all. Like, who's gonna ever go to New Mexico when it's proportional? And there's South Dakota, New Jersey, Montana, and California. I mean, I'd rather spend my time in California. So, um, that's pretty much it for these Republican rules. It is very complicated because every state has different rules, but when you look, just keep this bookmarked and just simplify it down to, there's only like three different rule: proportional, winner takes all, or winner takes most. So, or there's no allocation. So, um, or there's a direct election. That's the other one I couldn't find. So there's really only like four or five types of allocation, even though there's all sorts of different combinations. So um, it gets really interesting. You'll see a lot of zero states that give out zero by congressional districts, and then you'll see a lot of states that give out, like Pennsylvania will give out 54 unbound and only 17 bound. So that's kind of crazy. And then you'll see states like California where only 10 is statewide and 159 is by district. And California, California's districts are like crazy small um, in terms of landmass. So Texas is kind of a good hybrid where you're going to get 44 statewide. So the statewide vote is actually quite important, especially because it's winner takes most, not proportional. And then, I think Cruz, if I remember right, he got to 50%. So he got all 44. And then Trump got a bunch in case it got a bunch from the congressional districts. But yeah, if you can get to that 50% mark, that's huge in Texas. So, um, Minnesota's pretty much a true hybrid because that's not much of a split, or even South Carolina's a closer split. So these are basically hybrid states. Anyways, I hope this helps, and don't forget to bookmark this page, and you can look at all the information, and you'll be able to tell what's going on and who's likely to win. And actually, it gets so much more exciting when you actually know how it's playing out and how close these races actually are. So I will talk to you guys later.